we're very glad to host you or to welcome you to the third and final talk, School as a Healing and Inspired Communities of the Present Time. Now, I'll just give you a brief synopsis of the talk and then we can be able to move forward. Self-education is only possible in a community of other human beings. Now, in this particular talk, we will turn to the inner commitment of the teacher to stand as a contemporary in our time, learning to embrace the challenges and trust in the ever-present help of the spiritual world. Using the college imagination as given by Rudolf Steiner, we will contemplate the origin of strength for the task, courage to work collectively, and the light of inspiration for our daily work. This talk is led by Joan Slee, a very good friend of the East Africa. Joan Slee is an executive member of the Anthroposophical Executive Committee at the Gotianum, and also the leader of the Social Initiative Forum. Besides Joan Slee, we have 5 other colleagues who will lead us today afternoon. When we come to the breakout sessions, we will have Sylvia Njagi leading one of the breakout sessions. Sylvia Njagi is one of the founding teachers at the Nanyuki Waldorf Initiative and also a teacher trainer. We'll have James Solang leading the other breakout room. James Solang is a pedagogical administrator at the Rudolf Steiner School. We will have Bruce Jackson leading the other breakout room. Bruce Jackson is a pedagogical leader at the Nairobi Waldorf School. And then we have Mary Moneki, who will also lead another breakout room. Mary Moneki is a teacher at the Nairobi Waldorf School kindergarten, but she's also currently leading the initiative that brings together all the kindergarten teachers in Kenya. We'll also have another breakout room led by Faith Wambua. Faith Wambua is the founding teacher at the Waldorf Woodlands School. Behind the screens, we have 2 very special people who are not, or one who is not appearing in front of us today, and that's Callie Gilbert Patricks. She's the one who is behind the scenes, making sure that we are all comfortable as we meet. She is our technology person, and we thank her so much. We're also very grateful to Jessica and Sylvia, 2 colleagues from the Nanyuki Waldorf Initiative, without whom this would not be possible. They very gladly offered us the infrastructure that we're using today. Just a quick word about the approach. Joan Slee will begin by giving a lecture, and then from there we will proceed into breakout rooms. Now, this is what happens when we go into breakout rooms. You will get a short message on your screen asking you to join the breakout rooms. You must press that small space that says join breakout room. That will take you to the breakout room. When you're there, please remember to unmute your mic so that you can be able to join the small group of people who you will be with at the breakout group. At the end of the breakout group, there will be another message appearing on your screen asking you to exit the breakout group and join the main group. You will need to press that for you to be able to come back to the main group. Once you're back to the main group, we go back to the procedure of muting our mics so that we only allow the speakers to be able to speak. At this point, I am very glad to hand over to Joan Slee. Joan Slee, welcome.
Thank you, Victor, for your warm welcome, and thank you everybody for being here again, and that we can again have this meeting and gathering together. I don't promise to bring any kind of answers to the challenges of our time, to the situation that we find ourselves in, where we feel very unsure, very helpless, even to the point of being hopeless about the current situation and the future in the world, where we need to learn to, in a way, live without any ground under our feet, or stand tall without anything that supports us. And this is a strange time which seems to be continuing, it not getting better. There's no promise of it coming to an end very quickly. And so how do we actually deal with this? And I was asked originally to come and to try and have such workshops with you where we talk about inspiration, where we find another level of strength, another level of maybe inner sustainability within ourselves or within our spiritual practices, which can give us the strength and the courage which we need. And so this time, as well as Victor already presented the titles of our last two sessions, and I'll go into them just briefly because I'll try and tie it up in this session. But this one, we want to focus on the inner commitment. And what do we mean by that? Isn't it enough, the outer challenges, to try and cope with the outer challenges? Now we also are asked to take on an inner commitment. But I think as Waldorf teachers, as Steiner school teachers, we all know and have the experience that what I do outside reflects inside. And what I have as an inner practice is immediately impacting on my outer work in the classroom or with parents or with colleagues. And so with this in mind, today I'm going to start with a verse, and then we will continue with the actual topic. We have the will to work in such a way that into this work there may flow that which from the spiritual world, working in soul and spirit, in life and body, strives to become human within us. We have the will to work in such a way that that which works, that in our work that may flow, that which from the spiritual world, working in soul and spirit, in life and body, strives to be human within us. That our work is not for ourselves. Our work is not for personal gain. Our work in the schools is not for one's own advancement. Those three things probably come as side effects, but that's not the main intention of our work, is to increase our own capacity and ability and wealth, but to work in service of a much bigger reality. And we talked about that last time. And in this third workshop, we wish to turn to this inner commitment of the teacher who is asked to be a contemporary, to stand in the stream of our time, and not only to stand as a contemporary in our time, but also to stand aligned with and in touch with the spirit of place. So wherever we are in the world, we live in certain cultural, societal, but also spiritual surroundings, reality, context. And are we contemporary in the context of our zeitgeist, our spirit of time, but also within the spirit of place? Do I honor and know and understand and read into perhaps the cultural, societal and spiritual context within which I live? And do I honor myself and place myself in alignment with that? And how do we do this? How do we do this? Because in a way, as Rudolf Steiner says, this is esoteric. Esoteric or deeply spiritual is everything which is in alignment with a much bigger reality, where it goes beyond my own wishes and needs and achievements, but it goes as in service, in contribution to that which is wishing to come about in our time, in our future, that which our children bring to us and are expecting of us. When we stand in front of a class and we have all these eyes looking at us, there's a question, there's a need, there's an expectation in those eyes of those children, and similarly with the parents. And therefore it's so true that what Rudolf Steiner said when he inaugurated the first Steiner school, Waldorf school, 100 years ago, that he said this was a cultural act. And the first Waldorf school in 1919 in Germany was asked and called into being, we could say, by Emil Molt, who was a factory manager, the CEO of a big tobacco factory. And the time the First World War had just ended, and Europe, but the whole world actually, but particularly Europe, was in social and societal chaos, absolute chaos. And then there was this request from this factory owner to Rudolf Steiner to create a curriculum, a school, in which would further his workers' children, so that all the children of his workers could really get a different outlook onto life, could get the capacities and the inner strength and abilities, and probably also inner identity that would take them beyond the chaos of the time and into help them to be co-creators of a new future. And we are now 100 years later, and yet it seems as if we at the moment particularly again are within another world war, we could say. And this time the attackers is the virus, or our unsustainable weather conditions, where the elements seem to have gone crazy, gone awry, or also the social injustice which we are experiencing in many places all over the world. And we meet these different challenges in our time, and it's not localized anymore to one particular culture, to one particular nationality or country, but it is global. And that's why somebody once recently said this is a different kind of third world war. But the attackers, as I said, are again to the physical body, but they come in a much more subtle way than human being attacking another human being. They come through the virus. And through the virus that can mutate itself, that can change, that can multiply, that finds ways, even if we think we've researched it and understand its makeup and its life cycle, it changes and mutates all the time. So we are faced now, since half a year already, 6 months already, with a situation where we don't know how to deal with it, we don't know how to stop it, we don't know how to control it. And the scientific world, the medical world, but also the political world, they are placing a whole lot of restrictions. As you know, you're experiencing them. Restrictions and regulations in place, which is very top down. And that's because they too feel this responsibility for the nations that they guide, or the medical profession for the people that they are in a way responsible for. And they don't have the answers. And there are all sorts of suggestions, but neither the scientists nor the philosophers nor the priests and spiritual people really have the answer of this. And what we do is we respond to the physical attack, the attack on the physical body. And so they try to isolate and do social distancing so that one prevents an increase in infections, an infection rate increasing too fast, and that one tries to shut down the natural progression of this virus spreading throughout the world, while one is frantically looking for a vaccine to immunize people against it. And what we are doing there is we are ignoring the holistic image of the human being. And this is where Waldorf education comes in, and where we could say, through anthroposophy and through what Rudolf Steiner brought, we have an incredible tool with which we can try to, within our small circles and within our own schools and in our own families, to meet the needs on a far more holistic level than what the world is actually doing, or most authorities in the world are doing. And what is specific about, I mean, there are many special things about Waldorf or Steiner education, but the curriculum is designed around the development of the fourfold human being. In other words, the human being which does not just exist of a physical body, that sense perceptible part of the human being which we see. But as you know, and you've studied this and you experience this every day with your children, there are the other aspects of the human being which make up this holistic image of the true human being. And we have, of course, the human being is constituted with a life force body, or the life energy within one's body, which keeps this otherwise material this material design, keeps it alive and keeps it developing and keeps it breathing and digesting and growing and healing and reproducing. All of those aspects belong to the life processes. They show that we're alive. And the immunization, what is in the immune system, lives within those life processes. And so if we just shut down the contact to the outer world, or if we just nurse and deal with the physical component of the human being, we are basically just treating that matter, that clump of matter, which is what our bodies are made up of, without nurturing the life substance within them. And that's the one element, but we can ask ourselves, so where do we experience those life forces? Where do we experience what strengthens our immune system, what gives us the life energy, what gives us the enthusiasm, which allows us to get up in the morning and go to school with joy, or meet our children and take on the challenge of now having to do digital teaching? What is it that I get up for in the morning? Let's just think about that. From where do I draw my energy? What inspires me and gives me the strength to meet the daily tasks and challenges, even when I'm tired, even when I'm scared, even when I'm not feeling well? What is it inside of me that rises to meet those occasions, that rises above my own limitations? Where do I draw energy from to step up when I've got an extra task and I need to get up in the middle of the night to look after my sick child? Or I need to speak to a parent who's in fear or in panic. Where do I draw energy from? And I think each one of us has to find our individual wellspring, we can say, of energy. And for some, it might be singing and dancing. For others, it might be going out for a walk in nature. For others, it might be digging in the ground and planting vegetables. For another, it might be playing music, eating a healthy, delicious meal, inviting friends, or reading some very philosophical, inspiring thoughts, or praying, meditating. And each one of us individually has probably a whole set, a whole toolbox, or a whole wellspring of energizers. And these are those aspects which allow our life forces, our energy levels, to sustain themselves, or us to sustain them. And so if we're talking about finding a vaccine which is going to immunize us, the immune system isn't just in the physical body, but it's in the life force body. So what and how can we in our classrooms and in our school access within the children this level of strengthening, this level of life-giving energy, which allows them to rise above the fear maybe now, the isolation, the separation which they are suffering with us. So that's one aspect which you can look at for yourselves and take into account. And it's part of the curriculum. The curriculum is geared around the physical needs of the child, but also this life and energy stimulating aspects within our day for the child. And for the learning process lives in that realm as well. But then let's move on to the next level. There's another level. And that is, we could ask this question, what nurtures my mind and my soul? What warms me and makes me feel fulfilled, makes me feel good? So we had what enlivens me, brings in life. And now I'm saying what warms me and brings in this warmth. And we could say that everything to do with community, the human being in community, and Victor used that quote at the beginning, which I had placed as kind of a subtitle of this session, that all education fundamentally is self-education. But self-education is only possible within a community of other people. Because I know myself, I know my I only in relation and in participation with others, with other beings, with other eyes, with other human beings particularly. And therefore, where is the support structure of my community, my family, even a marriage is a little mini community, and we all are in relationship and are needing to be in relationship in order to know ourselves, in order to develop our own soul nature. And we can say, who are the people that I turn to when I feel down and upset? Who are those companions in life? Or we can say, who are those that comfort me when I'm challenged or confused? What do I do when I need courage to meet the challenges? What do I do to find courage? Who are those that I find conversation with or interaction with? Who are the loved ones in my life, and who are the ones that I can love? Because this is this level, I think, where in the community I learn to know myself. I become myself through the community that I'm living in, through the interactions with other people that I'm in. And then, of course, the fourth level of the human being, what inspires me to unfold that potential within myself, which hasn't yet manifested, but which I know is there. I know that I am more than I appear to be from the outside. I know that I can become more than I can manifest at the moment. I know that I'm able to learn, I'm able to develop, I'm able to grow, no matter what age we're at. Lifelong learning, we reckon with that, and we rely on that. And what is this aspect? What allows me to reach for my star? What stimulates and motivates me to reach for my star and to let it shine into all that I do? Even when I make mistakes, even when I know that I'm far away from reaching that star, which I know that I could be. And this is this level of the identity of each human being, this unique identity. And so if we look at our Waldorf schools as inspiring communities, then they are inspiring communities because they recognize the human being on this as a four-leveled entity. And our education and our way of life, if we work with anthroposophy, our way of life, our education, our way of dealing with ourselves and taking ourselves on recognizes that it's got these four levels that want to be nurtured. So the first one is the physical level, which needs the right kind of the right kind of exercise, nutrition, sleep, a proper rhythmical caring, we could say, in order for it to develop and grow in the right way. But we also need this, the life forces, our life energy needs to be stimulated, needs to be recognized, needs to be nurtured. So, and these activities of the life, which stimulate our life forces, they are activities which support a healthy immune system. Whereas those activities and practices which nurture my soul life, which nurture my thinking capacity, my feeling capacity, my intentionality, those are activities which I do with other people. In other words, my community allows me to become and to be nurtured in the best way possible. And out of that, being nurtured and feeling part of a community, I can unfold that star. I can begin to unfold that individual potential which I carry within myself in a probably quite a hidden way at first. So we could say, if we identify, as Rudolf Steiner did, this human being as this multi-leveled, complex but holistic entity, it's not about nurturing just one of these four, but it's about balancing these four, aligning these four with each other. And he speaks in the beginning of the course that he gave, the first course that he gave to those first teachers of the school, the Waldorf school. One of the first things he says is that your task as teachers is to balance this body, soul, and spirit nature, this threefold nature, but then with the identity, the I of the child, this I organization. Your task is no more, but also no less than to balance and balance these three and bring these different aspects of the human being into harmony, into alignment with each other. And the whole school curriculum, but also the methodology and also the community of the school is focused around this idea of balancing and aligning. So if we now look at these elements which we've touched on, we can say that a healthy school environment is therefore must engender and maintain this immunity through the way it treats the children, strengthen and maintain that immunity because of the life energy that it gives to the child. It must nurture and develop the community, also for the soul well-being of the child, and it stimulates the emerging potential of the individuality. And our first two workshops were geared to this, but not so explicitly, because now we're trying to bring this all together into one big picture. And in the first workshop, we talked about the awakening to sensory observation and perception. And we described how we summarized the process by saying that sensory perception in itself is a threefold process. That at first we explore and practice, and we do in the world, we do what needs to be done. In other words, we could say this fundamental sensory process of touching, we touch into the world. Everything is in a way a kind of touching into what is new, what is unknown, what is needing to be discovered. So we said this first field of the sense perceptible experience is through touching into something. And we said this is also the first level of the learning process, exploring a new content, being nurtured by a new story or a new content of a subject which I'm learning. We said the second level of sensory perception is then reflecting on it, because whatever I sense in the world around me through my sense organs has a a reflection, a resonance within my own self. And so the second level, which is reflecting on the activities that we do, the recall we do in class, the second level of learning, the second part of the learning process, recalling what we did the day before, we could say that this is, from the sense perceptible process, what resonates within us, what we see and understand as a reflection, as a resonance, an embodied resonance within ourselves. And this has a process of objectifying the first experience of touching into the world. The second one is seeing, understanding, objectifying. And out of that, we draw the conclusions. We anchor what it is that we have learned. This third part of the learning process, where we form the concept, where we anchor it in our books. And we could say that this is a kind of hearing, listening into what has landed within myself. What have I really understood? What can I anchor within me as a new capacity or a new step of knowledge? And this we could call embodied resonance within oneself. And out of this comes the motivation to go further and explore again in the world. So it starts the cycle of the learning process, but also the cycle of a sense perceptible process again, and sensory integration, sensory perception and integration, because it goes in the cycle of, once I've learned something, understood something, recognized something, it stimulates the next process to continue and find out more about it. So that was kind of, we could say, a summary of the first session that we had. And the second one was then we looked at new ways of real encounter and social engagement. And we touched there also on three aspects, which I'm just going to summarize briefly. We said we need to learn to engage. It's again that activity, the step number one, engage with inner warmth and interest. To see every other human being with warmth and interest, asks for an engagement, asks for participation, for stepping up and stepping into a meeting, an encounter. But if I want to really meet somebody and meet them in their otherness, in their difference to myself, I need to create a space for them. I need to see who they really are and create a space for their otherness within myself. And we talked about this, listening into the needs of the other, listening into the needs of the students, listening into the otherness, which I might not even understand, but through conversation, through dialogue, through exchange, and through creating this resonance space, I can learn new things which I don't know myself. I can learn more than I can just know myself. So that's part of that second element of encounter with another human being, which takes me beyond myself. And then third of all, to take it still a step deeper, we can say, how do I meet the uniqueness of the other, the unique beingness of the other, where I kind of create a field of affirmation, we called it, and understanding, where I say yes to the other, even if they're very different to myself, even if I might not agree with what or their approach or how they're dealing with things. But can I create the space of one human being meeting another human being? Can I create this space where, to quote from the gospel, where two or more are gathered in my name, something new can come in there, in that encounter. We create a space for something beyond ourselves, something intuitive, something inspirational to come into that space. And why did we talk about this? What has this got to do with the school and with our time, where we're anyway kind of, in a way, isolated and can't really be with each other? We said that in this meeting of one human being to another lies this capacity not only of self-development, but of developing new understanding of other, not only individuals, but also other ways of being, other ways of thinking, other ways of living. And through this, we can learn to develop a cosmopolitan society, grow into a cosmopolitan understanding worldwide. And I think this is what is asked of us at the moment. I think this is partly why this third world war is such a global attack, because it stretches way beyond just who I am in my cultural context or in my locality. And these are capacities which we can teach to the children. These are capacities which we can experience and practice ourselves every day in our meeting of our students, the meeting with the parents, the meetings with our colleagues, which of course are not easy. And of course I meet my limitations. And of course I don't always manage to create that space for another person, particularly when I at first don't like them. But this is a practice of trying to take on what is truly human, trying to develop beyond one's own, likes and dislikes, one's own desires, one's own knowledge of oneself even, we could say. And now we come to this inner commitment, this question of if it is true that we wish in our time, or are asked to as Waldorf schools to be healing and inspired communities of the present, we could say that even though we have to comply with the current restrictions and regulations, and we of course are bound to those, and we want to also honor those, we also have a commitment to our own students and parents and ourselves to honor and meet that fullness of human being which is within ourselves. In other words, that human part of ourselves which will continue to live even if the physical body is so attacked by this illness that it has to die. But there's an aspect of us which will not die, which never dies, which continues. And can we meet and nurture and recognize that aspect in the other one, in the other human being? And how do we rise above these limitations at the moment, these restrictions, or even if we stick to them and we have to stick to them, how do we, even within those limitations, find a new level of energy, a new level of inspiration and intuition? How do we do that? How do we fulfill our commitment to the students and parents and to ourselves? And I think this can only be done, and this is what Rudolf Steiner also said, by placing ourselves actively in service of the school community, or in service of the children, or in service of our colleagues, or in service of Waldorf education worldwide, which is striving to bring some kind of change, societal change, social change into the world. And here's a quote which pertains to what the teacher is asked to be now in our time. As teachers in Waldorf schools, we strive to stand in the present. We try to take the spirit of our time seriously in all the forms in which it manifests and in its challenges. The spirit of time manifests in forms and in challenges. That means that wherever Waldorf teachers are in the world, they want to act out of this sense of the present moment and the presence of the spirit of our time. In their dealings with students, these teachers wish each day to act out of a respectful, holistic image of the human being, which is what I just tried to characterize, this fourfold holistic image of the human being. And being in the present moment requires stepping ever and again into these changing demands of the moment. Stepping into the present moment as it changes and shifts all the time. Walking on shifting sands, dancing in the fire, we can say. Be these challenges in the classrooms, with the parent communities, or even in our own private lives. But we do not stand alone. And this is now what also comes through this community of human beings around a school, but it's more than human beings, because if we realize that the spirit of the time, and Michael is according to Rudolf Steiner, the great being, which is the support of our time. And yesterday was the day of Michael, the festival of Michael. So it's very fitting to be touching on this now today, which is why I wanted to now talk about that imagination which Rudolf Steiner gave to the teachers at the beginning of the first Waldorf school, in their first meeting. And it's interesting, he called together a whole lot of teachers, a whole lot of people who are not teachers, a whole lot of human beings who are active in life. And the one thing that they did have in common was their spiritual striving in terms of anthroposophy, their understanding of anthroposophy, at least to a point. But they were not trained teachers. But he drew them together and he said, you will now be the collegium which will inaugurate this first school. And without people taking notes, and it wasn't published in the first books, it was just written in people's notebooks afterwards from memory, he gave the imagination, which we're going to talk about now. And what Rudolf Steiner did was he said, this founding of the school is a cultural act, it's a spiritual act, because it is needed in this time, in our time, that we place the human being in its multi-leveled, as a multi-leveled entity into the center of the learning process. It's not just about academics, it's not just about developing intelligence. It's about developing the complexity of this holistic human being. And he said that we are inaugurating this school to, or dedicating this school to the spirit of our time. Because of the chaos around the social and societal and economic, and now we have to add environmental chaos of our time, this school is dedicated to the spirit of the time, to Michael. And he said the following, he described the following: we need to have the understanding, we need to form our thoughts in such a way that we imagine ourselves as a college of teachers, or the association, we could say, of teachers, of East African teachers, or we could also say of worldwide teachers. But we imagine ourselves forming a circle and standing in a circle or sitting in a circle, which is why we have our meetings in a circle. We need to form our thoughts in such a way that we may feel and imagine that behind each one of us stands our angel. Our angel, that personal guide, that spiritual entity which accompanies us through our life and beyond and from before, and is that guardian angel. And I think we can talk about that. No matter what religion or belief system we come from, I think all religious orientations speak about angels. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think angels we can talk about. And if we imagine that behind each one of us stands our angel, gently laying his hands upon our head, and our angel gives us the strength which we need for our daily work. The angel gives us the strength that we need for our daily work, the strength for our task. And then above the angels, they circle the archangels, and they form a circle and they circle around. They are not still. They bring from one to the other what each person has to give the other. And imagine this in a college of teachers or in a group of colleagues, that each one of us recognizes what we have to give the other and recognizes that the other has something to give to us. And the archangels, they circle and they weave above the angels, giving to each what each one has to give to the other, what each capacity has to share and give to the other. The archangels weave around and bring from one to the other what each one has to give the other. And in so doing, in this movement, they form a chalice. They form a spiritual receptacle, a spiritual vessel, we could say. And then from the long, far distances, the archai, which is the still higher level of angels, an archai is like the time spirit, like Michael is an archai at the moment, he's the time spirit. They come from far distance in the past and disappear into far distances in the future, but they may drop a drop of light into this chalice, which the archangels have prepared. And the archangels, through this chalice, they give us the courage which we need. So the angels give us, each our angel with its hands on our head, gives us the strength which we need for our daily tasks. The archangels moving and flowing around us and between us and bringing from one to the other, which each one of us has to give the other, that gives us the courage for our work, the courage which we need to step up to what we need to do. And out of this courage, they form a chalice of courage. And imagine around the school a chalice of courage, a formation of strength and a chalice of courage, into which a drop of intuition, a drop of inspiration, a drop of light can come from the guiding beings of our time, the still higher spiritual beings, angelic beings. And as this is brought and given to us and enters into, we can receive this, and it kind of mediates down from the archai through the drop of light to the archangels giving us the courage, to the angels giving us the strength, and right into us. We realize there that we are actually part of a much, much bigger reality, which is what I started with. And saying that if we talk about all education being self-education, but in relationship to a much bigger community, self-education can only happen within a community, then we can now say we're not only speaking about the community of human beings in the school, but above and beyond that, there's a community of angelic or spiritual beings also working into the school. And somehow with this moment, at the moment that we live in, this time of, dare we say, crisis and challenge, where we don't know if our schools are going to survive, we don't know if we're going to stay healthy, we don't know how to really fulfill this task of being good teachers if we now have to teach online a lot of the time. Then I would like to just bring this today as a real gift of Waldorf education, of what Rudolf Steiner brought to those first teachers, that we remember that we are not ever alone in this, but that if we are in meditation or even in quiet, when we pause and go into moments of quietness, we can link into this much bigger reality which is there to help us. And I think we can sense more than ever at our time, there is like an opening for that. There is a longing for that. And there's not only a longing for us human beings to be inspired and guided by the spiritual beings. As far as we know from Rudolf Steiner, there's also the longing for from the spiritual beings to be nurtured, to be noticed, to be named or recognized by the earthly beings. Because we have the capacity of freedom, which they can only experience through us, in relationship to us. So I need to close. I don't know, Victor, if I've taken far too long. But can I read this once more?
Yes.
And just to say, this is not the kind of meditation that one uses every day. I've chosen this specifically now because this is our third and last workshop, and it's quite a critical time that we live in. So I really want this to be a strong moment, but it's It's used in festive moments in schools, maybe once a year at the opening of the year, maybe in the college, when the College of Teachers meet. It's different in different schools. But this is actually a very powerful meditation, which shouldn't just be used at any time and in any way. It needs to be held in the right earnestness and protection. Okay? We wish to form our thoughts in such a way that we can be conscious of the following. Behind each one of us stands our angel, gently laying hands upon our head. This angel gives each of us the strength that we need. Above our heads there hovers a ring of archangels. They convey from one to the other of you what each one has to give the other. They connect your souls. Thus you receive the courage you require. And from this courage, the archangels form a chalice, a vessel. The light of wisdom is given to us by higher beings of the archive, who do not form themselves into the ring, but come from the beginning of time, reveal themselves and disappear into primal distances. They project into this space only as a drop of light. And this falls into the vessel of courage and can therefore imbue us through our angel, which gives us the strength. And we can take hold of that as human beings, as each human being, but in relation to the others and in relation to our angel and the spiritual beings. So,
Thank you.
with that, I will close this part of our meeting.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joanne, for planting these beautiful seeds that will take us into our discussion groups. Joanne Slee has sent to us 3 questions that she would want us to discuss in our discussion groups, which we will go into shortly. Question number 1, what do you understand by being a contemporary of our time? The word contemporary here meaning belonging to the present. What difficulties, that's number 2, what difficulties do you experience in collegial collaborations? And question number 3, what can you do to improve the level of co-working and co-creating in your own schools or in our schools? So Kali, I think we are ready to send people into their breakout rooms. Please remember there will appear a request on your screen requesting you to join a breakout room. Press on join, and when you're coming back, there will be one requesting you to leave the breakout room. Kali, you can send us to the breakout rooms.
Thanks, doing that now.
Okay, dear colleagues, thank you so much. Welcome back to the plenary or to the main group. I hope we've had very fruitful discussions. And now we would want to hear a bit of a feedback from what some of these groups have been discussing. So let's start with the group that was led by Sylvia. And Sylvia, you have 5 minutes. Over to you, Sylvia.
Thank you so much, Victor. One of the challenges is timekeeping, but I'm hoping to learn something today. So the group 1, in this case, went through the questions, and there was all different views on what the connection or understanding of being contemporary was. There was thoughts on adapting to change, flowing with the change, but not being swallowed by it, embracing the change, because change will always be constant. And that's the change is probably what will constantly be the present in every time. Ideally, we are the ones, as John said, the human being has the possibility to swing between these two poles and the freedom to actually choose which pole is needed when. So really, we can adapt that change, we can embrace it, and we can learn. And the difficulties then that come with change, the difficulties that come in being in collegiality, the difficulties that come as we try to perform these spiritual tasks in our earthly bodies, also became windows to what we need to make collegial relationships better. So we had things like trust or lack of trust, lack of communication, rigidity, antipathy and sympathy, and self-beliefs when meeting contrary beliefs and how we deal with that is some of the difficulties. But in those same difficulties, we found that when we have trust for each other as colleagues, and where there is not trust, to use communication to compensate for that, so that we clarify and seek to understanding, having an empathy, a deep empathy for ourselves and for each other, because we'll meet different things every day. And really what John ended with, knowing that we are not alone, even as colleagues, we can look to the higher, we can seek to connect with the spiritual as we meet each other, but also as we go back home and reflect and plan for the next day. There's an opportunity there to keep making our work relationships, co-working and co-creating easier in that way. So I'll stop there with those few remarks. The discussion was very rich, but I'd like to summarize it that way. Thank you.
I thank you so much, Sylvia. You've only used 2 minutes. You still had 3 more minutes to go, but thank you. All right, let's hear what the group that was led by James, some of the discussions that came out of that. James?
Okay, thank you, Victor. I'll start with, first of all, congratulating the members of my breakout group. They were very active in the discussions. And at some point, I had to tell them we have a short time when we are still engaging in question 1. We're not going to question 2. So that was very positive. And what do you understand by being in a contemporary of our time? Well, we found out that humanity finds fulfillment in the community. So one always wants a sense of social belonging. And what the virus and the lockdowns have caused is take away the social aspect of us and create spiritual, emotional, physical distancing and also suffering upon these people. And then we came to a point where we realized that if we fear the virus, then we get to be weak in our own selves. So we say that we need to be positive, we need to have courage, and above all, how we engage one another in the social aspect will help us to grow ourselves in the contemporary. Then we saw how do we collaborate with our colleagues. That was question number 2. Then we realized that one, for us to achieve communal responsibility, we first must have what we call personal responsibility. Like in the current pandemic situation, if I'm careless in self, then the chances of contracting the virus and passing it on to the people that I commune with is very high. But if I take personal responsibility, I stay awake to my environment, sensitive to what goes on around me, then I positively impact the community with that. So for there to be trust in the social aspect of the community, which is the school, then personal responsibility carries everything first. And then we slid into question 3, unknowingly, where we started looking at the things we can do to improve the levels of collaboration, co-creating and working together. And we found out that most important for us to achieve that, we must develop as self. So for us to self-develop, we should be able to do meditation a lot, taking studies, like the 3 sessions that John has taken us through. It has really nourished us. And just for lack of time, if we could get more out of Joanne, then our taps will not run dry anytime soon. And also getting to encourage one another. It's saddening when you meet people and everybody's talking about bad news happening there, bad news happening there. But when you meet people and everybody is positive, then some level of spirit come into all of us. And even somebody who was feeling weak also begins to feel encouraged. And just looking into one another, if somebody has been so quiet, not saying something, reach out to them. Because if one feels left alone, one feel deserted by others, then you find they might slowly slide into depression, suicidal thoughts. And as Joan had said, that we have angels behind us and archangels, it takes us to the aspect of how we religiously commune with one another. That would be very important. And Victor closed for us with a verse, which I would ask him to speak at the end of this talk. I don't want to say a single word out of it. I would dilute what I would ask Victor to say for us. It speaks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, James, for bringing your thoughts. I think we now go to the group that was led by Bruce, Bruce Jackson. Bruce?
Thank you, Victor. We started with 6 of us, including myself, but it turned out that one of us wasn't there at all, disappeared fairly quickly. We also had somebody called Jackie, I believe from Woodlands, but she was only with us for a short while and then disappeared. So we ended up as being 4 Mzungus, 1 Andrea from Denmark, 2 Tana from the school I'm at, the Nairobi Waldorf school, and the 3rd, apart from me, was Joan. So we had a really interesting conversation. I didn't take any notes, so I'm now going to try and elaborate. I've asked, with Victor's permission, if anyone wants to, from my little group, to add anything to what I've said if I forget something really important. Thank you, Victor. So the 3 of you, including Joan, if you want to. Yeah, we talked basically, the first question was, what do you understand by being a contemporary? And we thought there are several things. Obviously, this whole thing about vaccinations. What does one think about vaccinations? What is it like being in Kenya at the moment with this sort of chaotic ping-pong government decision? You never quite know what they're going to say next. Are we going to go back to school tomorrow? Are we even going to be going back to school in January? So why are we here now? Are we trying in some ways to solve that problem for the people that we're responsible for, which is our children? And then we looked at what is it like to be a child at the moment, especially a very young child. They're being brought up learning using screens, and that's all that they're used to. So they'll think that school is basically sitting in front of a screen rather than running around with their teachers. So a very different situation for for children at the moment. We then moved on. We spent a lot of time talking about one, but we looked at what difficulties we experience in collegial collaboration, and we spoke a lot about various things going on in Kenya and in the school that I'm in. And we looked at then something that I mentioned about the fact that, you know, somehow you need to, as a collegium, you have to make a decision about something. Do you then have to look at some sort of a consensus, or do you look at a vote? And obviously, if you come to a decision by voting, it's not necessarily the right one, but a consensus decision is also very difficult. How do you actually deal with the collegial situation at the moment? And yeah, Joan's, the college imagination, which she spoke, obviously tells us a lot. One has to deal with a lot more than the very physical situation that we're in. Then the third question, yeah, we looked, what can you do to improve the level of co-working? And we mentioned the fact that here in Kenya, there's the talks on well-being. We had somebody trying to help us look at what we can be doing as teachers at the moment in Kenya. And then there was the suggestion that, yeah, it's quite helpful sometimes just to take somebody out for a cup of tea, and then you can talk to them on a one-to-one basis, which might be much more constructive than trying to talk in a collegial situation. But that's basically all I can say from what we talked about. If any of the three of you want to say anything, please feel free.
Yeah, you still have 2 minutes for the group.
About 40 seconds each. Don't feel that you have to, but if you want to. I don't think any of them do, Victor, so thank you. That was the end of my group. So thank you for the group. It was a really great little discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce and group. Let's next hear some of the thoughts that came through from the group that was led by Mary Mwaneki.
Can you hear me? I had a problem with my. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First, I want to commend my group for the support. At some point, they could not hear me, but I could hear them, so they went on with the.
Come closer.
Can you hear me now? I'm not
That's
sure what's
better,
going on. Okay.
Much better, much better.
Okay. Thank you to my group for the support when my laptop had really gone down. They went on with the discussion. I could hear them, though they could not hear me. So on the first question, with a lot of certain uncertainties that's there, we looked at us being conscious of who we are, what's going around, and what we are bringing. The community around us, what are we doing to work together to bring each and everyone at the same point? And as an individual, do you have your own directions? Like, are you standing strong, or are you being moved by the wind that is coming? There are lots of negativity information that's coming. Are you able to take what's really helping? Or are you able to stop the negativity? So it was a lot of being conscious about each and every one of us. The other question about the collegio, the key thing was communication. As all of us are not at the same level, sometimes it's very hard to understand what the other is talking about. So we really needed to know how to support in the communication, not being judgmental. At the moment, we are not meeting as a group, but we meet like this. And it's sometimes very hard not to get what one is saying. Distance brings a lot of uncertainty with human beings. We are meant to be social beings. So when we are far much apart, we might be judgmental from each other. But we need to remember that we are not alone. Whether you are alone in your house, you are not alone. As Joanne has said, we are never alone. So that's one thing that we really talked about that we should remember. And the last question, the key thing was self-education and self-development. We are adults, and it's very hard to change an adult unless it's coming from our own will. So that was the key thing, that we need self-development talks, and one needs to go through self-education and more talks. Thank you, Victor.
Thank you so much, Mary. James, if you could kindly mute yourself.
Yes.
Then let's now hear from the group that was led by Faith.
Thank you, Victor. We walked through the questions, and the first one, with us being a contemporary of our time, we saw that there is need for one to remain open, very open-minded, remain flexible. There is need for one to be able to embrace what is and remain responsive, but also not forgetting that we are open and free will beings. Then for the difficulties, one, there was a recognition that there is distance now between us. We are all on the screen and not sitting in the circle that we usually do for our meetings. So that is bringing up already a difficulty with communication. And there could be many misunderstandings that come through, because now we are having to go through emails, through texts for all communication, and that can be cold. It can actually be difficult. And the self-expression it's difficult as it is. So that brings uncertain times, uncertain reactions, because one is not sure of the reaction of the other on the other side. And that uncertain reaction then brings a bit of complexity with the emotional life of each. So there are assumptions that the other is well on the other side, yet, that could not be the case. So in that way, then one is being called for to reflect on the other. This is now question 3. One is being called for now to reflect on the other, because you're not certain of what is on the other side, or what the other one or the other on the other side will be able to take on as your part of what you communicate. So being in that way, then you're opening up space from within to be able to listen, understand at a deeper level of who the other is on the other side. And in that way, you hold yourself back sometimes to create the space for the other. We also recognize that one needs to be conscious and intentionally accommodate the other's need. So therefore, in a way, you're already anticipating the other's needs. We also looked at empowering the other. And how do we get to do this? How do you empower the other? Sharing your experiences could be able to open up or uplift the other. Meditating also on their behalf would be able to carry them with you in all that you do. We did not speak much, but that's all that we did. And I would like to appreciate all the members of Group 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Faith. Thank you. Now we take this opportunity to go back to Joanne Slee and allow Joanne Slee to give us her closing thoughts, and also maybe to close this session with the verse that she started with. Joanne Slee.
There we go. Yes, thank you, dear friends, dear colleagues, that we could have these 3 sessions together. I think it's a challenge to take up this inner work as a commitment, but as was echoed by so many people, this is also the only way for self-development. And I think I've heard some beautiful ideas of what it means to be contemporary. And I think that I would just like to echo that. It means that we are born at the right time. This is what we're here for example. or that I need to stand up and be present. I need to stand up and be there, show up, stand up, wake up, you know, or that I've been given an opportunity which I otherwise wouldn't be able to fulfill, perhaps. And so this thing of acknowledging our time as a gift rather than as a problem, I think that's very, very powerful. And what Faith now said about empowering each other, that's also very powerful. That even in these difficult situations, that we find ways of empowering each other, of acknowledging each other, of bringing warmth and light and life. These are the 3 Christ principles. And if we can bring warmth and light, well, warmth is love, love and light and life into our schools, then no matter what the challenges are, we'll be meeting the children in some way which is good and which is sustainable. And it's difficult to do that. These are lovely words. This is very idealistic, and the practicalities are often really not easy. But I think that's part of being a contemporary, is loving one's current situation, loving the challenges, acknowledging the challenges, saying, yes, I've chosen this life. I've put myself into this difficult situation again and again. And there must be something, not only that I can learn from it, but also something that I can give. So colleagues, let's stay dancing in the fire. Let's stay awake. Let's take the biggest stride of soul we ever took, says Christopher Fry. Things are now soul-sized. The enterprise is exploration into God. That's our time. Exploration into God, into the God in each one of us. And yes, the challenges will still be there, and they're not going to get easier. But if we can balance them with the big soulness that we all have, particularly in Africa. And I think Africa, with the sun, with the challenges of the elements, but also with the enormity, the enormous resilience of nature and of the sun, I think we have something to offer to the world. And so I feel very honored to be able to work with you. And I hope that we can meet in person. There's so many people who I don't know. Many of you I do know, but there's so many that I don't know. And I would like us to, at some point, meet in person and work together face to face. That's my wish. And I will end with a verse that I started with, but then Victor, you were also asked to end with a verse.
Yeah.
So we'll end with verses today, shall we? For Michaelmas. We have the will to work in such a way that into our work may flow that which from out of the spiritual world, working in soul and spirit, in life and body, strives to become human within us. We have the will to work in such a way that that which flows through our work, that in our work may flow that which from the spiritual world, working in soul and spirit, in life and body, strives to be human within us. Thank you, dear friends.
Thank you so much, Joan Slee. Our deepest appreciation from East Africa and from many other places where many colleagues have joined us from. Australia, Denmark, Ivory Coast, many places where colleagues are listening to this session from. Please, dear colleagues, Joan Slee tends to appreciate feedback a lot. So through your different school representatives of the Kenyan subcommittee that has been meeting regularly, if you can be able to channel your feedback through those committees members, we will be sure that that feedback gets back to Joan Slee. I am very certain that when we reach out to Joan Slee again, she will be willing to maybe give us another set of 3 talks. I'm sure that, and we've heard from a few of you, that this has been very, very helpful in many ways. If you would want us to continue, please let us know through your representatives as we take time to review the 3 talks that we've gone through. Allow me to, at this point, take this opportunity to say a very, very big thank you to the following people: to Sylvia Njagi, to James Olang, to Bruce Jackson, to Mary Mwaneki and Faith Wambua, who are not only breakout room session leaders, but they're also members of the subcommittee that has put together some of the things that we've been able to experience in the past few months. And I'm sure they will continue to be able to work within the subcommittee to see how we can be able to move forward these forms of collaborations that we're experiencing now. Very, very huge thanks to someone who is often never seen on the screen. She's always on the background, but doing a lot of work. And she does a lot of work to bring us to this point where we can have this kind of talk. This is Kali Gilbert Patrick, a founder parent at the Nanyuki Waldorf Initiative, and her co-parent Jessica, who are 2 very great individuals who've donated the infrastructure that we are working from today. So thank you so much, Kali. And then to the Nanyuki Initiative in general for allowing us to be able to use this platform so that we can be able to meet together as a community the way we are meeting now. Please, can we, I know this is not possible for them to hear it, but can we just put our hands together for all these people who've made it possible in this way? Yeah, whichever way you can show your appreciation, please, let's do that. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, dear colleagues. I'd want to end with a very short quote from Emil Bock. He's written a book, and what I want to just read is something to do with the Michaelic thought. And this is what he says, because we're in the Michaelic time and we just celebrated Michaelmas yesterday. The Michaelic element that we have to learn to find and feel in a completely new way never lies in what has developed and is finished. It always lies in what is developing, in an ideal perfection for which we must struggle. I just want to read it again. The Michaelic element that we have to learn to find and feel in a completely new way never lies in what has developed and is finished. It always lies in what is developed in an ideal perfection for which we must struggle. And so to finish with a verse that James had requested that I do, it's a verse that we all know. So if you can join me in speaking it quietly wherever you are, that's the healthy social life. The healthy social life is
found
only when the mirror of
each human soul,
the whole
community finds
its reflection. And
when in the community the virtue
of each one
is living.
Dear friends, let's find a way to end this like we did last time. Please open up your arms wide enough from wherever you are. Gather as much love as you can, as much love and warmth and beauty and everything else that is good about humanity. Gather all of that from as far as you can. Bring it all together. Bring it all together. Bring it all together. And as you wrap it around yourself, feel that you're wrapping it around all our colleagues, wherever they are, all our colleagues with the beautiful work that they do for our children, and all our colleagues that together we've experienced what we've experienced today afternoon. So thank you so much, Joanne Slee, once more, and we look forward to more sessions like this when it will be possible again. Wishing you all a good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on wherever you are. Thank you, dear colleagues. Yeah.
Thank you, Victor.
Bye.
Bye.